We're looking this morning at more big decisions in how the vaccines will roll out province to province and why some of Canada's leading scientists are calling the plans into question. Beginning in British Columbia this morning, where that province's top doctor has announced the longest time span yet between vaccine doses.
The important thing that we have learned is that these vaccines work, they give a very high level of protection, and that protection lasts for many months. Extending this second dose provides very high real-world protection to more people sooner.
BC is extending the interval between first and second doses to 4 months, 16 weeks. Current guidelines say the delay should be just 3 to 12 weeks, depending on the vaccine. And Michael Serapio is going to pick things up with that, because there's BC's decision, Michael, and the response it is receiving from some other science advisors questioning that. But let's begin with more on why BC is going the route it is.
Well, Heather, you know, for British Columbia and officials there, this really is about getting as many shots into as many arms as quickly as possible in order to save lives. Now, in backing up this decision, British Columbia is essentially looking at real-life data, results collected after experience and beyond really what the drug companies presented out of their clinical trials. And to that, Dr. Henry says that the data collected by the BC Centre for Disease Control in countries around the world show what officials call miraculous protection after just one dose, a 90% efficacy rate against the disease, which Dr. Henry says lasts months. Now, couple that with the fact that Canada does expect 6.5 million doses of Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca by the end of March, with more to come. And BC at this point, well, they feel that they can safely extend the period between dosing from 3 to 4 weeks, 12 weeks with AstraZeneca, to as long now as 4 months. It is bold. It is a longer interval period than other jurisdictions in this country. But Ontario, we have to say, is now looking at this move with the goal of pursuing a similar direction as British Columbia. And the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, well, they too are apparently examining this policy. And as to what other factors weigh in this, we'll take a listen to one doctor in British Columbia who was part of a team that looked into vaccine effectiveness.
Extending it out beyond what we have data for might carry a risk that initial immunity may wane before that second booster is available, but we don't know at this point. What we do know, though, is that if you vaccinate everyone with their first dose widely, you will be able to save a lot of lives, and I think that weighs heavily on that decision making.
Well, and clearly, again, that is the goal here that we heard from Dr. Bonnie Henry yesterday. This is about saving lives for BC officials, and that means getting more people inoculated, perhaps sooner than originally expected, Heather.
So the word there from Dr. Lee, Michael, that this might carry a risk because it is beyond what we have data for. Canada's chief science advisor among those others who are expressing similar concerns.
Absolutely. She believes at this point that the safest path forward is actually to stay with the guidelines set out by the drug makers. And to that, listen to Canada's chief science advisor.
I think it's really important that we stick with the data and with the great science that gave us these fantastic vaccines and not tinker with it, particularly when we think that we have variants of the virus that are emerging that are not as well recognized by the vaccine. It's possible to do it, but it amounts right now to a basically population level experiment.
So the chief science advisor speaking to Vashi Capellos last night on Power and Politics. But, in speaking with at least one drug maker, Moderna, CBC News did hear that drug companies admit that in the time of pandemic, governments will have to make their own decisions about these vaccines, even though they are sticking with their original guidelines in terms of intervals between dosing. And remember, though, Quebec has already made the decision long ago to extend their interval period to as long as 90 days. BC, yes, is longer, but officials there are once again seeing how effective these vaccines have been once administered around the world. So they believe this is the best path forward to protect as many people as they can from COVID-19, Heather, given that this is very trying times for many people, and they do think this is the safest way forward for them.
It's a really interesting discussion. Michael, Ontario as well looking to follow suit potentially, follow the BC example, looking for guidance from the federal government as far as Ontario's position. So this is obviously something we're going to be talking a lot about in the days to come. Certainly a good starting point for us today. Thank you, Michael Serapio.